Hi, and welcome to this edition of Mid-South Viewpoint. I'm Byron Tyler. Glad you could stop by today as we visit with a dear friend of mine, Pastor Francis Sebakindu of the Living Water Community Church. Francis, it's been some 30 years that you journeyed to Memphis. Has it been 31 years?
Well, it's coming to 30 right now.
Okay, you're close to 30 years.
I'm close to 30.
You're close to 30.
Yes.
I like that. Living Water Community Church was established 30 years ago.
Right. Well, a little before that, but I came in and started to, guide it to where it is right now.
Now, were you the first pastor of the church?
No, I was not. Somebody else was there, and God called him in another area, and I was invited to come and step in.
I appreciate you clarifying that because I always was under the assumption that you started this church plant.
No, basically the history of it, as I understand it, came through a house church that was a leftover from a gentleman who was a freed slave, and his name was A.J. Sandlin. And when he died, there was no leadership, and this was the gentleman held Bible studies in his house, and until he died, and this was the remnant of that. It became Living Water Community Church.
I did not realize that, those details. Yeah. So how many years prior to you coming to here do you think this church was in existence?
I think it's back in the 50s and 60s and all that, and when he died, basically, even the gentleman who started the church, I think the street, Sandlin in Memphis,
Sanderlin,
East Memphis, is named after him.
I was going to ask you that question if it was.
Yeah, that's what I understand. Where that place where the clock tower is, supposedly was his land.
Wow.
And he was a freed slave, and he really became a very well-known person in the community, and but he did not prepare to leave somebody when he died. I don't know the condition of how he died. Maybe it was abrupt, that he didn't have a chance to have a heir apparent to keep this ministry going. But the man, one of his followers, kept a Bible study in his house for years and years on Bellevue near Chelsea. And out of that, he began to work with kids and also with the ladies in the community, and has a Sunday school and a Bible study. And out of that is Living Water today.
So really what started is something that you're continuing to do and have been for the past 30 years.
That's right.
In that little Sanderlin strip, I was just thinking it's right there between White Station and Mendenhall, that little small strip behind the Clark Tower.
That's where the Rocket Club is. Yep. That's basically that area.
There's a retirement home or a nursing care facility, skilled nursing care facility there on that same strip too. And it's interesting, when you look at the history of, well, of course, any community, how it develops. And of course, right now, we've got tall buildings there in that area, other, shopping and retail stores and businesses in that whole area. But at one time, that was farmland.
Well, that was farmland. There's another secret about maybe Memphis don't know. White Station High, where it is right now, he started that as a school for black kids, and eventually turned it over to the county. And that became the White Station High School.
I did not realize that. Now, I know that particular property where White Station is in that area off of Poplar, I believe that was the White family. Their name was the White family who actually owned that property.
Right.
And if I'm not mistaken, I understand the history was that where the train is on Poplar Avenue, what's called White Station because there was a train stop right there.
Right, So, yeah, that's some of the information that I've been able to, gather around when the people were, the ladies that were talking to me, were telling me some of the background.
Yeah. When you first came to Memphis some 30 years ago, it wasn't too long after that you saw the need of helping the poor in the community, those close to your church, and especially around the holiday time, you realize that many of these families didn't have a traditional holiday meal to enjoy for Thanksgiving, even Christmas.
That's exactly right. Because when I came, I didn't know anybody in the city of Memphis. I came blindly. And as I started walking the community and meeting people, I met a lot of elderly people, single mothers, and all that. And I saw how destitute their life was. And Christmas or Thanksgiving, it was just a very sad situation, because many of them did not have anything that really you can present as a meal for Thanksgiving. And that's where this idea came from.
You and I met not too long after that. I mean, you had started doing meal preparation. You and your wife, Lynn, were actually cooking in your own kitchen, and you had a tent set up right outside the church. Now, I don't know if there was anything prior to that, but I remember when I first met you, when the church was over off of Hollywood in Eldridge, or off of Jackson and Eldridge, that area there in that area of our town, you were actually Living Water was in that location, and you had a tent set up, and you were inviting the community, those in the neighborhood, to come and to participate in a Thanksgiving meal. You
really do remember the history, because that's what happened right at the corner of Springdale and Eldridge. We used to set up a tent and cook and try to invite as many as we could. And eventually, my kids started going to ACS, and so I shared that need with the community of Evangelical Christian School. And they came alongside me, and then the Lord brought us together, and you helped us raise more food, and things began to look up.
I was trying to just remember exactly how many years ago it was that Bot Radio and WCRV actually, entered into that partnership with you, and I can't even remember exactly how many years ago that was. Do you?
Yeah. Well, the station was located right over there at Poplar and Mendenhall. So if you can remember back then, when the station was at Poplar and Mendenhall, near Houston, the restaurant Houston. So that was the first place where we did a food drive with WCRV.
Wow. You know what? Especially since you mentioned a moment ago about Mr. Sanderlin, and just thinking that street was right behind the radio station.
That's
and that
right.
was probably the property that he possibly owned.
Yeah, he did. They say he owns that property where Clark Tower is, and the other next big building, and where the Racket Club is. He owned that land.
Right next to, possibly owned the land where that First Tennessee Bank building was,
That's
or right close to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that really is amazing when you think about that.
Yeah.
And as we look at, Francis, just thinking about what God has done, over the years, that we've been able to partner with you through our listeners. Our listeners have been so faithful, and that's why we wanted to kind of get together and to remind friends that our annual Thanksgiving food drive that we do, thanks to, and this thing has really, has developed into a really blessing to through the relationship we've had with you, and then over the years, Randy Steverson with Steverson's Super Low Foods has, joined in as a sponsor, allowing us to provide as a drop point. Back in those days, we used to have listeners come by the radio station and drop their canned and non-perishable food items off. But because of our relationship with Randy Steverson and Super Low Foods, they've got multiple locations around the area. And so we have these food boxes and bins that they can collect food for us. Our listeners can drop by, and since they're in a grocery store conveniently, they can go ahead and buy a few cans or some non-perishable items and then drop those in the box. And that's what we're getting ready to announce. October the 10th will be when the receiving points, these different Super Low Food locations, we'll give those addresses out in just a few moments, where our listeners will be able to go and drop these items in these boxes. And then we have a special can now that receives these food items beginning on October 10th.
Yeah, it's amazing how God works because I remember before Super Low stores were in Memphis, they had one store on Macon Road. And we used to go over there to Macon Road and buy turkeys from over there.
Yeah.
And then as time evolved, they expanded and bought more stores and started Super Low. And then God just opened Mr. Stevenson up, his heart up, to partner with WCRV and Living Water to make this really event a blessing to the community.
Brad Whitaker, I was just thinking, he was the meat man, and Brad's been a longtime friend of mine, and I know you've developed a relationship with Brad too.
Oh yeah, Brad, he was on on Macon Road. That's the one where I started picking up turkeys from him.
Yeah, growing up as a little boy, my mom, of course, still lives in the Highland Heights neighborhood. And I would collect Coke bottles. Back then, you could turn a Coke bottle in and get, 3 cents or a nickel for, deposit. And Randy's uncle, Mr. Jack Steverson, had this big old white apron and bow tie, and his hair was slicked back, and he just that ready to serve you, store owner. And he was behind the counter, and I'd drop those bottles off, and he'd give me my change so I could go buy candy or go next door and maybe play the pinball machine at the little drive-in store, So I've got some fond memories, too, of the Steverson family growing up. Yeah,
that's right. It's a wonderful family. I think this community must be thankful that we have a citizen like the Stevenson in this community. Yeah,
they have been just a mainstay for so many families. A great value, really, for shoppers. And I'm thankful that there is still like a mom and pop kind of shop like Steverson's. We've got the big chain, nationwide stores are in town, but people need to take advantage of some of these local. I remember when I was growing up, all of the communities, and it seemed like there was a lot of mom and pop grocery stores. And though you don't see those much anymore,
you don't really see them. And I think the other thing I appreciate about them is their prices are real reasonable.
Yeah, they really are. Yeah. And plus they're employee owned too. That's another thing about Steverson's that we appreciate, that the employees are, they take pride in their work, and you'll find some great service when you stop in their locations. Now, as I mentioned, October the 10th is when our listeners will be able to start bringing their food items, non-perishable canned goods, to the Super Low stores. We have a store located at 4744 Spotswood, 4571 Quince Road. That's their newest location. 2155 Covington Pike, 3327 North Watkins, and 6532 Winchester. And also at 945 Goodman Road in South Haven. That's where we actually do our live broadcast now. We'll be giving some more details out about that and sharing about how our listeners in North Mississippi can help participate in the food drive. But really, all of the Memphis area food drives that we mentioned, not Super Low locations, rather, Super Low food locations at Spotswood, Quince, Covington Pike, North Watkins, Winchester, each of these locations, food that's collected will go to your efforts in reaching families that wouldn't have a Thanksgiving meal.
Exactly. All the food that is collected from the Memphis area stores come through Living Water, and we distribute them. I would also want to kind of mention, because we do provide a turkey and a ham in each basket. And want to encourage people to really support us, not only with canned goods, but also maybe buy a turkey if you can, or provide some funds where we can get enough turkeys to cover all the people that we're going to be ministering to.
That's going to be a great help, Francis. And I just heard on the news report that the prices of turkey is going up. There was that bird flu virus that affected, chickens, and also affected turkeys. Now, I understand there are still plenty of birds for this Thanksgiving and the holidays because of the frozen turkeys. But, the cost of turkeys is going to be a little bit higher. So you're going to your expenses are going to go up too as you
That's
provide
right.
these meals.
Yes, sir.
So that'll be greatly appreciated if somebody wanted to make a financial contribution to help buy turkeys, ham, or fresh produce.
Writing a check to Living Water Community Church, and they can drop it off at WCRV station here, or they can drop it off at our church. Our address is 428 North Watkins, Memphis, Tennessee, 38104.
And the families that you serve, what has, since you started, of course, the ministry itself has moved, as we mentioned, from Hollywood, Eldridge, and the Jackson area, Springdale community, not too far, but over closer to the Crosstown area. The new Sears Crosstown renovation is taking place. You're just across the street there.
Yeah, right. We are just across the street where Watkins splits with Cleveland. And Watkin becomes a smaller street right behind the Jehovah's Witness theater.
And that used to be the old Crosstown Theater. I remember when I was a kid going to see, movies at the Crosstown Theater, which is now the Jehovah's Witness Assembly Hall there.
That's right.
That revitalization of that neighborhood with the Sears Crosstown, my mom worked for Sears, retired from Sears in the mail order catalog sales. And it's kind of funny to think that there was actually a whole building full of people that were doing nothing but processing mail order, back in these little, Sears really got its, business from these little communities, little small town communities where there was a store and a catalog, and somebody could walk in and flip through the Sears catalog and write down the number off of a particular page or item that they were wanting, a product they were wanting to purchase. And that would be sent to here in Memphis. And my mom was one of the processors taking those orders and making sure they were filled and sent back to these little stores where people could come and get their purchases. But anyway, things have changed with all this electronic stuff we have now through eBay and Amazon and all these kind of orders that you can do online.
Exactly. But the building is going to be now used a different way. Labana Church Health Center is moving in. And there's going to be a lot of different things going on, a charter school. So that whole area is really being transformed.
Francis, as I mentioned a moment ago when I was asking you about the growth of providing needs for people, how have you seen, is it increasing? Is the need increasing? Is it decreasing? Is it pretty much stable now?
To tell you the truth, the need is increasing. Every year, you encounter new families. And, so there's more people you have to minister to. We also have a new group of people that we're trying to minister to, refugees from Africa, from Rwanda, from Congo. We are, reaching to them. Some of them are Muslims. But we want to show them the kindness of the Christian spirit. Yeah. So we have a lot of new families we're going to be reaching.
You invited me last year to come and be part of a worship and a Thanksgiving celebration. Matter of fact, it was the same day the food drive was that we did the live broadcast.
Right.
And afterwards, you invited me to come to the church. The people there were just so welcoming and warm. And the worship, the music, you have a very talented group of people who lead worship there.
Well, believe it or not, all of those you saw were once young people in the community that God led me to reach. And now they are in ministry, and music is part of that ministry. They enjoy it.
Wow, and they're amazing. I'm telling you. If you want a blessing and you want to be encouraged through song, you need to stop by Living Water Community Church some Sunday.
Well, let me say that, if churches, some church are listening, or members of churches are listening, our praise and worship team are available to minister to any other body of believers. And if they want to hear how they sound, they can contact us, and we'll be able to fellowship.
I was hoping that some of the praise team could come to our live broadcast that we're going to do on Saturday, November 14th at the Superlow Food location in South Haven on the parking lot there, live broadcast where we just take over all the programs and just bring you live coverage from the food drive, do interviews. And we've actually had, last year we had the Brown Missionary Baptist Church men's choir sing several songs too. So I'm hoping we can do that with your group.
Well, I've given them the information, and I think they are really looking forward to coming and ministering during the food drive.
Well, that's going to be fantastic. We always have a great time, and that's really the kind of the climax of as we wrap up the food drive. All of giving thanks of everybody who's participated, stopping by the various Super Low Food locations. But we kind of bring everybody to Super Low Food South Haven. We've got the Mississippi River Kings that are involved. We have the South Haven Fire Department that always brings a truck, and we have other goodies for the kids. We have food we give away, and it's just a wonderful time. You can actually come by and personally meet Brother Francis, and also Ann Irwin, who oversees the Colonial Hills Food Bank in North Mississippi, Colonial Hills Baptist Church. That's our newest partner as we expand it. When Super Low Food opened up their South Haven food location, we looked for a partner in North Mississippi, and we couldn't find anybody worked any harder than Ann Irwin and her team at Colonial Hills. They're literally serving thousands of people throughout the year, Thanksgiving time and other parts of the year too, with food and other needs that they meet. And so we're happy to be able to welcome. This is I think third year to have Colonial Hills Food Bank, to help them. So all of the food collected at the South Haven location at Super Low Food, 945 Goodman Road. If you take your food on beginning October the 10th, then drop it off there, that food will go specifically to Ann Irwin and her team at Colonial Hills as they provide Thanksgiving, meals and other food needs throughout the year in North Mississippi, DeSoto County, Tunica County. So that's really exciting too. We can actually kind of expand this even further, Francis.
That's right, and that's the partnership, because what did the disciples do when they had a great catch? They beckoned other people to come, and they shared. And this is exactly what the WCRV Food Drive has done. As God has blessed us, and we crossed over to North Mississippi, that another ministry is being blessed by the food drive.
Something that's been real special too over the past, just about as long as we've been doing this, has been the participation of Rossville Christian Academy. I mean, that whole school in Fayette County has gotten behind the food drive in your ministry, Francis, and they've had this competition to see who could bring in the most, canned goods. And it seems like the last couple of years it's been either the kindergarten or the first graders that have been having this runoff and see who can bring in the most canned goods. And that's been so exciting. That's
been exciting, and also a shout for ECS Evangelical School. They've participated in they bring it on a different day. So those two schools have been very, 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 very instrumental in making this a success.
And that's really what's neat. I think as we as parents teach our children what it is to give, they need to see us give, not just, the tithe on Sunday morning in an envelope, I mean, they need to see us give beyond that, reach out to our neighbors and opportunities like this in food drives to, take your children to the store, let them pick out the canned goods and the non-perishable items, let them maybe put it in the basket, and maybe they could take their own allowance. You've actually had over the years, I remember there have been children who have given their entire allowance for months or I don't know how, maybe longer, to your efforts in the food drive, and that's been really a blessing.
Yeah, I've met so many of them young children who have participated, and what they used was their allowance, and what a blessing, because a child giving to somebody they've never met or know is really a testimony to the Christian parents that are raising them up.
And many of those you serve in the community that you serve, Francis, are children.
Right. The majority of we have children. I mean, that's what touched me first, because a lot of those children were in homes. We would bring them out for programs, and then on a Thanksgiving Day, there is nothing for them to eat. And then there's no way you can look them in the face and after Thanksgiving, go pick them up, bring them to a church activity, and you know that they didn't have any meal Thanksgiving Day. And you can't enjoy yours. So I think God just said, do unto others as you want them to do for you.
Wow. And you just made the mention a moment ago about these refugees that are fleeing, for political and war-torn countries coming here. And these are legal people coming, by the government, refugees, and this is their first stop, many of them, into American culture. And we need, as the church, to take advantage of the opportunity to share the love of Jesus, and that would be, first of all, giving, and that's a great opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Let me tell you this, because there was a lady, the first time when we picked them up for English, teaching them English, she didn't know that we were going to go to a church, a Christian church. And we got off, and she said, she said the word kanisa, which is a word for church. And she did not believe that it was going to be in a church. And she was apprehensive of going into a church. And that's the first time she was even close to a church building. And she came in eventually. And when she came in, she saw the openings and the love and all that. And she kept coming for the Sunday school, the English classes. But the first time she, as a Muslim, to step in a Christian church, she did not want to do it. But now it's open. She can come in because she knows what takes place in there. Caring, loving, and just helping and embracing.
Well, Francis, I'll tell you, again, I get excited each year when we have this time to get together and talk about the food drive and remind our friends that October the 10th is the day you can start dropping off those canned and non-perishable food items to the super low food locations we mentioned all across Memphis, also in South Haven. And we're going to give you more details. This is just first of several programs we want to produce to let our friends know about it. So please make sure that you participate. Have your kids participate. We've got more details to tell you. Francis Sebakindu, God bless you. Thank you for what you're doing for Christ's kingdom, and thank you for allowing us to partner with you in this food drive.
Well, thank you very much, Brother Byron. You've been a real God-sent person. God brought us together these many years, and we have not broken apart. Every year we hold hands and we do what God wants us to do.
Friends, that's all the time we have on this edition of Mid-South Viewpoint. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks for stopping by. I'm Byron Tyler. Bye-bye now.